welcome to the Loft. We hand out stupid shirts. It's a good time. I'm a big fan of them. And not just because my face is on them, because Tyler's face is on them too. That's great. But we've been in a series we started last week called Freedom, talking about what it means to find freedom in Christ. What does Jesus have in mind for us when we believe, man, Jesus came to forgive us, came to save us, man, but sometimes we need to be reminded that he also came to free us from some certain things. And so we've started last week. Next week we're going to take a break for Fields of Faith, and then we're going to close out with 2 more weeks of this series and just kind of going through Galatians and seeing Paul as he talks to the church of Galatia. But something, as I've been reading through this, man, something that I found out about myself and then I remember about myself as I kind of jog my memory. I lose it in my old age sometimes. Right? Thanks, John. Appreciate it, man. Usually Bubba brings those back, but it's good for you too. But it's simply this, okay? Man, I love the state of Texas. There's like American patriotism, and then there's like Texas state. I really love Texas, like passionately. I intentionally chose to go to schools in the state of Texas because I was like, if I stay in Texas for school, it will be near impossible for me to get hired outside of the state of Texas. Therefore, I will never have to leave. And then I went deeper and I was like, I'm going to be even smarter. And I married in 8th generation Texas because I was like, not only will I not be hired outside of the state, her father will kill me if we leave the state. And so I've really covered all my bases. And I never want to leave, and it's simply because of this. I really, truly believe our state is better than the other 49. Like, I just believe, I've been to quite a few of them, but I believe, man, like, and I love vacationing, and I love going to the mountains and all this different stuff, like, but it's not Texas. It's just not. It's not what it is, right? My little sister growing up would just be like, I can't wait to move away. I'm going to go to New York. And I was like, do you hate Jesus? Because Jesus would never leave Texas for New York. Like, who are you? Right? And then I began to sit and think about it. And something that's interesting about me is when I think about my love for Texas, it doesn't really make sense because I wasn't born here. And I forget sometimes that I wasn't actually born here. I was born in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And I moved here when I was 4, and so when people are like, I was born and raised, or like my wife likes to rub it in my face, she's like, you don't love Texas as much as me. I was born here. I'm like, shut up, do the dishes. I'm kidding. I would never. I apologize, right? And I'm like, yeah, no, I get it. You don't love it as much as me. You're born and raised. But I'm like, but I feel like I was, right? If I were to live outside the state, when little baby Emery came, and if we had to be in a hospital outside, like I'd be one of those people that's like, quick, ship me dirt from Texas, or I like slide it under the hospital bed so that way my baby's born over Texas. Like, I want my kid to have that, just that pride that they are better than everyone that they meet. But in that, there's also like this little piece of home that lives inside of me from Arkansas, right? Like when we cross the state line and we pull into Arkansas, like the trees are taller. There's very pretty parts of it. For the first 18 years of my life before I got saved, I was an Arkansas Razorback fan. And then I met Jesus and went to A&M. Thank you. That's so good. There's more of you in the room than there used to be. Brainwashing works, I'm telling you. And but when I go, I just feel like I'm at home. But the thing about Arkansas is like, for the majority, like, there's some backcountry rednecks. Okay? And like me, that's not who I am, right? Like, I don't know when hunting season begins. I don't own a fishing pole, right? Like, I can't tell you anything about guns. And it's not because I hate any of those things. It's just because I wasn't raised that way. Like, I was raised in a golf course community in white suburbia. Like, there just wasn't a place for regular hunting and fishing. We spent our money on other stupid things. And so, like, we just missed out on that. But my mom's family, right? Like, they are hard. Core, right? Like, I've got closets for my clothes. They've got closets for their guns, right? Like, you know, like people have gun safes or like gun safe. They have wall of safes, right? Like, you just walk in and you're like, Cabela's, right? That's what my mom's family is like, right? I spent many a Thanksgiving and Christmas in trailers as they should be spent. You like walk into the backyard, there's just pots like this big. I'm like, what are you making? Gumbo. I'm like, I didn't know that's how you say it. That's fantastic. This is where I want to be. This is the deep south. Like, my cell phone immediately loses signal when we walk on the property. It's like, I'm going to die out here, and I don't even care. This is the best place to be. Like, there's just this inner working in me that loves the deep south. And man, even though I don't hunt and fish and all that stuff, although I do, or I want to, like a couple times a year, I'm like, maybe I should start. And I just think about that, and then I'm like, I've worn skinny jeans too long. I can't go back, right? Like that's kind of the process there. But when I do go back home, there is this deep South part of me that exists, and in it, it's simply this, man, I love four-wheeling, right? And that's not something that existed in my golf course community, right? Like people weren't just tearing it up around the corners, like it didn't happen. But like the moment I see one, I'm like, how fast can it go and how do we flip it, right? Like that's where my mind goes. Like other people, like they'll go, what's the safest way to drive it? I'm like, how do we blow it up, right? That's where I live. And so when I would go to see my mom's family, we would walk in and I'd be like, I'm so excited to go see Grandma and Uncle Jason and all of them because we get to play with the toys, and their toys are not video game systems. Their toys roar, like they're awesome. And they're way more expensive, and if I break them, we're going to get disowned. Like, this is great. And my mom was like, they might not let you drive today. Don't get your hopes up. I'm like, we will take the family down until we drive. Like, that. Like, I was like, Christmas presents? Don't need them. Just let me drive. Like, that's where I want to be. And so one Christmas, me and my cousin, not my cousin from my mom's side, my cousin from my dad's side just knew, like, this family over here is a little bit more exciting because we don't know what we're going to kill and we don't know what we're going to flip. Could be animals, could be people. We don't know. Like, let's just play. And so he would come over for Christmas. He started getting Christmas gifts, right? Like, he just knew who the fun family was. We're like, well, let's give you stuff. It's great. And we walk in, we see my cousin Brandon, and we're like, Brandon, where the four-wheelers at? And he's like, oh, y'all want to go out and drive four-wheelers? We're like, yes, that's why we came. Like, we moderately like you, but we came for the four-wheelers. So we go into the garage, and they've got, like, just more four-wheelers than cars. Like, the price tag's like, this is where we spend our money, right? Like, they're, like, making them street legal, so they don't even have to buy cars anymore. And we're just like, yes, right? And then they look at us, and they give us, like, the city people four-wheelers. Like, no, they're like, if you die, it won't be that bad. Like, take that one. And we go out, and they live in this neighborhood. There's only, like, 3 houses at the time, and there's just woods. And just lakes, and in Arkansas, the trees are just way, 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 way taller. If you've ever been to, like, East Texas, it's kind of like that. And so we just take off, like, as fast as we can. Man, we're tearing it up into trails. It's kind of in northwestern part of Arkansas, and so there's, like, you know, hills, even like mountains you get into them, so we had to drop it into first gear and kind of scale them up a little bit. We're going around, we see a lake. I mean, it's awesome. I'm just like, I want to be out here for the rest of my life. And then Brandon pulls up, he's like, hey, we got to go back, we got to get ready for dinner. And so we kind of follow him back home, and then we're sitting there, and, like, me and my cousin Josh were like, we're not done yet. But he says that we're done, but we're not. And so we look at him and we go, hey, man, look, listen, we followed you around. We drive these things very well. Like, do you trust us with equipment? Can we go out on our own? And he's like, oh, yeah, well, that's not a big deal, but hey, it's getting dark. I don't want you to get, like, lost out there. So do you know your way home? And we're like, yeah, man, like, we just followed you. It was easy. You just follow the trail. Woo, we're back. And so he's like, okay, just be in before dark. We're like, okay, Mom. And so we take off. We just barrel back out. And it's me and my cousin, like the 2 city kids, because he's from Little Rock, which is like the only city in Arkansas. And we're just tearing it up all over the place, mud everywhere. We're like, this is our dream. And then at one point, we pull over and he takes his helmet off and he goes, all right, man, like, how do we get back? I was like, so what the what? Bro, like, I thought you knew, right? Because my cousin was like a human GPS system. Like, at 7, we'd be driving around Arkansas, and he'd be like, we're on I-30 now. And I'm like, what's an I-30, right? Like, no one learns road names until you get a license, and you have to know them. But that's just how he was, man. Like, he just operated in that way. And so I'm like, well, man, it can't be that bad. All trails got to lead back to the beginning, right, eventually. But guess what? That's not how they actually, like, make trails. So we put on our helmets, and we start just tearing it up again, blah, blah, blah. And then it gets dark, and we turn on the four-wheeler headlights, and I'm like, this is where, like, this is the moment in the movie that the city kids die. Because the hogs are, like, going to come out, and I've never actually, like, seen a hog in real life, but they sound terrifying. I've seen them now, and they are terrifying. My original fear is true. And I'm like, there's going to be bears. Like, I don't even think there's bears in this part of the state, but they're going to kill us. Like, this is where it goes down. There's no cell phone service because the trees are all stupid tall, and they're like, no, Sprint, you cannot get through. And that's why we switched to Verizon and AT&T, and our lives are better. But we go through that, and we stop again. We take off our helmet, and we're like, hey, Lane. I'm like, hey, Josh. We're whispering so we don't die. Nothing comes to get us. It's like The Quiet Place, too soon. And he goes, I don't think we know where we're going. And I lean over and I go, we don't. And about that time, we hear this engine in the distance. And I look at him, I go, the Lord has found mercy on us. And we throw our helmets on, and we just barrel out of there, and we get to the ends of these trails. We're just like following the noise, like stopping every now and then, cutting the engine, like, do you still hear it? There's hope. And we get to the end, and my cousin Brandon is sitting there just laughing on his four-wheeler. And he's like, hey, I thought I said back before dark. And I'm like, you didn't get it. It's going to be hard to get back. We almost died. And then we get home, and we go in, and our moms are in there, and they're like, where have you been? You almost died. I'm like, we did die, and we came back. It's a Christmas miracle, right? And now I'm not allowed to drive four-wheelers anymore. No, that's not true. That's not true. But in that moment, we had this moment where, man, we thought we knew how to get home because it was made easy for us. We were shown the way through another person that could get us there. And then we got cocky, and we decided to think, we can do this without him. And we began to figure out how to do it on our own, and we ended up lost and confused. And I say that because that's where we're at in Galatians. Last week, when we opened up to the beginning of Galatians, Paul is reminding the church of Galatia of their original faith, and we talked about, man, it's only through Jesus that we can find freedom. And he says, man, I came, and I gave you the gospel, and I gave you truth, and you believed that only through Jesus could you find a relationship in God. And then now, you're over here, and you're now beginning to rely on self. I showed you the way home to the family of God. I showed you the person that would lead you there and what it was through, but you began to rely on yourself. And so tonight, man, for many of us, that we say, we know Jesus, man, we found freedom in Jesus. What we need to lean into is, are we still following Jesus, or are we relying on self? Are we relying on our own good deeds, on our own works, and our own morality to take us home, or are we relying on Jesus to take us home? And the great tension here, as we kind of left last week and we moved into this week, is we said, man, your only freedom is Jesus. It's through Jesus that you can have a relationship with God. And then some of us walked out and we said, but how does it work? We said, what do you mean only through Jesus I can have a relationship with God? How? I don't understand how the property translates across. Because for some of us, just like the church of Galatia, man, we wanted to know God. We wanted to be in the family of God, but we just didn't know how. And last week, we kind of left you with this. Through Jesus, well, but how? How does that work? And we're going to see here in a little bit, but Paul begins to talk about this thing, faith. And faith is an interesting word because we kind of have like diluted the word faith a little bit, right? Like for some of us, faith is like the banner that we wear at our school. And so we see it all the time. We hear it all the time. We know it all the time. For some of us, right, it's like that sign in your home that's like faith, family, friends that Hobby Lobby sold you. And you're like, that's so cute and adorable. They made it for $5, sold it for $40, right? And then if someone were to come to you and you know Jesus and they said, hey, tell me how to have a relationship with God. And you would look back and you would go, oh man, it's by grace through faith. It's only by faith in Jesus. And they would go, what do you mean to have faith in Jesus? And you would go, oh, I didn't think we were going to get this far in the conversation. And you would sit there and you would begin to rack your brain and figure out, like, what is faith? How do I put it into words? What does it mean? What is my faith in? What does faith do? How does it work? It's like harder than your calculus homework. And you begin to sit there and you begin to go, what does faith do? I know that that's how Jesus did it, but how does it work? And so Paul, man, he's reminding the church of Galatia, and he's actually even reminding them of a sermon that he's already preached before, and we're going to kind of look at that a little bit too. But we see this, man. We see this tension that we're talking about in chapter 3, verse 1. He says, you foolish Galatians. Paul is not known for his kindness, people. It's very forward, which should make you love me more. Who has cast a spell on you, which is another weird thing to say in Scripture. Before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified. I only want to learn this from you. He's like, just tell me this one thing, Church of Galatia. Did you receive the Spirit? We're going to talk about what the Spirit is here in a little bit. But he goes, did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by believing what you heard? He says, did you receive the works of the Spirit by what you did or by believing what I told you? Are you so foolish that after beginning by the Spirit, are you now finishing by the flesh? Many of us in this room, man, we began by the Spirit. We said, man, faith in Jesus, I believe in God. It's by faith that I'm saved. And we're trying to finish by the flesh. And now we're trying to do it on our own and to earn the favor of God through our own good deeds and saying, look at what I've done for the kingdom, and your accolades don't amount to much. Did you experience so much for nothing? If in fact it was for nothing. So then, does God give you the Spirit and work miracles among you by what you're doing or by the works of the law? Or is it by believing what you heard, just like Abraham who believed God, and it was credited to him for righteousness? Here's what you need to know. Some backstory. Abraham believes God. God credits him righteousness because of what he believes. And then God tells Abraham that him and all his people are going to undergo something called circumcision. If you don't know what that is, ask your small group later. It'll be a really fun conversation. And he says, you are going to be known by this outward expression, this physical thing that is going to mark my people. We do something like that even today. We call it baptism. We say this is an outward expression, something that you do. It doesn't save you, but it's something that you show. It's a terrible illustration right now because I'm not wearing mine because it broke, but I do love my wife. A married couple will wear a wedding ring, and the ring is not what makes them married. It's the decision, it's the covenant that they've entered into, and they wear something as an outward expression. And the people of the church of Galatia who said, I believe on Jesus Christ, are now being told that's not how you come to the family of God. You have to be circumcised like the rest of us because that's what God told Abraham, because they forgot that God didn't tell Abraham to be circumcised to be in the family of God. He told Abraham to be circumcised because he was in the family of God because of his faith. And Paul reminds him of faith. And even now, we're still pressed. We say, what is faith? What is faith? What is faith in? When I was a kid, the only thing in the world that I wanted was a tree house. I was obsessed with forts. I wanted a place to get away from my parents, who were genuinely good people. And one day we bought a house. It was a nice-sized house, nothing huge, but our backyard was massive. Just massive. Giant trees just everywhere. And I'm in third grade when we buy this house, and we go to look at it, and we go in the backyard, and my dad leans down to me because I was short in third grade, and I didn't have my growth spurt until I was a sophomore in high school. And he looks down at me, and he goes, see that tree back there? A beautiful tree, just huge tree, just roots everywhere, just limbs just going in all directions. And he goes, see that tree? That's where we're going to build the tree house. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yes. You bet your booty, Dad. Because butt was a cuss word in my house. And then we're going to build a tree house there. We're going to build a tree house there. My brother was 6 years older than me, but at that time, he still lived with us, hadn't graduated high school yet. And I'd go, like, Lance, Dad's going to build me a treehouse. And he never built you a treehouse. And Dad's going to build me a treehouse. So we'd brush our teeth, and my brother would look at me and go, Dad's not going to build you a treehouse. I said, yes, he is. He said so. Dad's not going to build you a treehouse. Don't you think I ever wanted the treehouse? Did you ever say that I got a treehouse? I said, I know the house we moved from. There ain't no trees, son. We got trees now. Dad's going to build one. And I would go outside and I would look at this tree and I was like, oh, it's going to be awesome. And like 2 floors and stairs and a slide that comes down and a couch over here. And all that. Like this tree house is going to cost like $10,000. And we would walk, and one day Dad comes to me and he goes, man, we got to prepare for the tree house. We got to prepare for it. I'm like, yes, we do, Dad. And he would come to me and he'd go, so we're going to build a ladder. It's like our flag in the ground, like this is our place. And so we go, and I remember buying the wood and with my little tiny hands in this hammer, just like, just hammering this ladder. And I go and I put it and I build it into the tree, and I could see the ladder, and I could wake up every morning and be like, I can't wait till there's floors. And we would walk out there. And one day my dad comes to me and he goes, you know what? Out of that treehouse, you need to be able to have a rope swing. And I'm like, yes, I do, because I want to see death. And we'd go to Home Depot, and I kid you not, you can go to Home Depot today, because I did this the other day and I just started crying inside. I was just so sentimental. There's a yellow rope, man, just like this thick, and we buy this long yellow rope, and we cut it, and we take it, and we tie it on this tree, and it was a death trap, because we would climb up the ladder to the limb, and the ladder was like 20 feet tall then, probably realistically 8 feet, and we would jump out of the tree and swing out of it and come back and touch the limb, and it was awesome, and I could look at it, and I could go, man, my dad loves me. He's going to build me that treehouse, and I can see what he's going to do. I'm seeing it. And my brother would go, he's not going to build you that treehouse. That swings as far as it's getting. I'm like, he said it, and he's doing it. That's my treehouse. Man, I believed my dad. I had faith in him because he said it and because he was doing it. And when I believed him, it drove everything inside of me. Man, my mind, my heart, my body, my soul, man, I just beat for that tree house. I talked about it. I went to friends, and I was like, you're not even my friend yet, but you will be when I had the tree house. Right? It just drove everything inside of me. I started acting to it. I started building the ladder. I started taking part in it, because when you believe something to your core, you take part, mind, heart, body, and soul. It overtakes you. I had faith in my dad. I believed in my dad. Paul reminds them, he says, remember what you believed. What is it that they believed? See, in chapter 1, Paul regularly uses this word called gospel, that is the good news of Jesus Christ. So what is it that they believed? What is it that they had faith in? What was the promise that was given to them that they had faith in, that they believed, that they took hold of? We don't see it in the text, but what I imagine is Paul walked in and he begins to lay out the gospel that is this, that my God has created everything. Man, you walk outside and you see the intricacies of a tree, and you look up into the stars and you see the galaxies and you see everything that's at play. Man, my God created that. And you walk down the hallway and you see somebody and you see the most beautiful girl you've ever seen. Man, my God created that. And you walk down the hallway and you see a guy that's cut like a diamond. You say, my God created that. You go home and maybe you're one of the few people in the room that your family isn't just completely broken, and you walk into a loving family, you go, man, my God created that. And you look around and you see all that God has created, and you say, man, my God, he's created everything. He is the God. He is not a God. He is the God. He has created everything. But the issue is that you and I have this thing called sin, which is a biblical world, a Christian world, a very church up word for this, that there is something broken in me and you. And I don't have to look into you to tell you what's broken about you. You already know. And I know that because I know what's broken about me. I know my tendencies for pride. I know my tendencies for selfishness. I know the things that separate me from relationships with other people. I know the things that tear me up inside. I know the things that can break apart my marriage. I know the things that can make me a terrible father one day. I know them. I know what's broken in me. And then we can look outside and all that God has created. We say, man, even when God has created, there seems to be something broken about that too. And it's because sin lives in me and that affects everything outside of me. And it separates me from the same God who created the beauty that I saw before. But I see that, and I want to know God, and someone's told me about God. Someone's even told me that God has loved me, and I want to know that God too. But you're telling me that I can't because of sin, because I am not God. And so we either have to believe one or two things, that God is a bad God who doesn't love people, or we can choose to believe this, that God desperately loves you, and that in all of that creation, his pursuit is you, which is incredible, because I don't know why my wife would pursue me. And you want to tell me that God, the God that created those stars, those trees, that kid in the hallway, my family, that God would pursue me. And I've got to imagine that Paul would come in and he would say, and he wants to be in a relationship with you, and you believe that for all of time that he only wanted to be in a relationship with these people over here and what they looked like, but he wants to be in a relationship with you. And you can be in that relationship, but you have to have this thing called faith. And he said, now listen closely, because here's what your faith is in, that the God that wants to pursue you would send Jesus, who is God. Because the only way to be back in relationship with God is for God to do it himself. He would send Jesus to die for us because a price had to be paid because there's a debt in our sin. And then Jesus would be raised again so that way you and I could have a relationship with God. That the relationship that we desire, Galatians, the relationship that they desired, that they could finally have their relationship with God through Jesus only strictly because they believed in what Paul told them. that Jesus was God, that they were separated from God, and that believing in the death and resurrection and giving their lives to him, that they would be made more and more like God every day because they would be in relationship with him. And when you're in close relationship with somebody, you become like them. And the Spirit that he promised, man, it's going to come dwell in you. And so it's not going to be you changing yourself into God. It's going to be God living inside you that makes you look more like God. And it's not about your church attendance, and it's not about what you look like, and it's not about what your family looks like, and it's not about where you came from, and it's not about what language you spoke. It's about have you personally made the decision to put your faith, everything you believe, that my mind, heart, body, and soul cries out to God. Have you put your faith in Jesus? For many of us, man, we get bored in the faith because we stop falling in love with Jesus. Because we forget that our mind, heart, body, and soul is being changed from the inside out, God within. And we started doing it ourselves. We said, man, if I could just read my Bible more, if I could just pray more, if I could just do more things. Those are good things, but they are not going to save you. Jesus is the only way home. That the God who created everything would come and die for you and for me. Bring you into a relationship with him, that you would become like him. That's the good news that Paul tells the Galatians, that he reminds them of, that their sin is forgiven. The thing that separates them from God is forgiven, but also that you are free from it, meaning you don't have to live by it anymore. You don't have to live captive to giving yourself to your boyfriend over and over again, hoping that they will love you, to demanding your popularity in the locker room that you're never going to get, to hoping and praying that your parents will love you because you make good grades and you're great on the field. Because my God, who created all things and who's created you, wants you and sends Jesus as the evidence that he wants us. And that's the promise. And it takes hold of our mind and our heart and our body and our soul. It's not a prayer. It's not something that's gifted to us by being born into a family. It's a life change inside out that takes hold of our lives and pushes us on for the rest of our days. And it's not always easy, and sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it's frustrating, and sometimes we still feel distant from God, but we know, and we are reminded, just as Paul reminds the Galatians, take hold of what you once believed. Are you now trying to do it on your own, or are you doing it from what you once believed?